Welcome to Mid-Century Living, your weekly nostalgia podcast about the best of technology and culture from the mid-20th century.
Welcome back to Mid-Century Living, the show where we talk all about the best of the mid-20th century and how to add the vintage vibes to your modern life. We are your hosts, Gonzalo.
And Jackie, thank you for joining us today. So today we're finally talking about nylon after saying we've needed to for years. But first, Gonzalo, how was your week?
My week was not nylon related at all.
Fair.
What happened this week? Nothing happened this week. I did something very non-mid-century.
Okay.
Because we got a lock for the front door that is not key operated, which means my house has now entered the future age because all I got to do is put my phone near the lock and the lock unlocks.
Oh.
On the front door, which we never use. But what's cool about it is that like my house has like an automation on it, so like at nighttime, like the lights turn off and the AC changes, or in the winter the heat turns on. In Christmas time, there's one for like the Christmas tree to turn on by itself and like all kinds of crazy stuff. And like when you walk in the house, like some lights turn on so that it's not dark if it's nighttime. When I drive away from the house, it does things to like the AC and the lights, and the TV turns off. So now the door will also lock if I do some actions.
That is my worst nightmare.
Why?
Because as soon as the robots decide to mess with us, they can unlock your door or lock you out of the house. They can lock you into the house. They can turn your TV on, turn your TV off, turn your lights on, turn your heat off. All of that without you, just to like mess with you.
But I'm nice to the robots because I always tell Siri thank you. And I tell AI please and thank you. Which, by the way, there's a news story that apparently people saying thank you and please to AI is costing the AI company people like hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Because apparently it takes time to compute for the machine to like understand that like you're saying thank you. I don't understand how it works. But apparently that time that the computer is spending thinking about the thank you costs the company money. And pretty much the CEO of the AI people, I don't know what the company's called, was like, guys, please stop saying please and thank you. And everybody's like, no, because when the robots take over, they're not going to attack the people who were nice to them.
No, they're going to attack
And I was
everybody.
like, yes, I agree.
They're not going to notice a difference.
Shh, they will. They'll remind me. They'll remember me.
I much prefer the analog version of everything. I can turn my own lights on. Thanks.
Don't get me wrong. I love the fact that I love analog. Obviously, we host a mid-century podcast, but I am one of those people who will leave the house at least 3 times because I keep thinking that I forget to turn stuff on. So really, my big use of like home automation is when I get to work and be like, did I lock the door? Or ooh, did I turn the coffee maker off? Which that does not happen in the automation thing. I have to like physically come back for that part. But like one of my constant fears is like I left the house and like the doors are all open and the windows are all open, even though I don't open windows in the morning. So like a lot of times I make it to the stop sign at the end of my street and I'm like, did I lock the door? Did I close the garage? And then I turn around and I make it to my driveway and then I always talk to myself. I'm like, see, stupid, you did close the door.
Aww.
And then I drive around, get home or go away. But anyway, that's my craziness. That is my head and my new non-mid-century technology. How was your week?
I wish you the very best of luck in that endeavor. My week was fine. All my Easter plans got shuffled, so it ended up that we didn't have any like brunchy breakfast anything to do on Easter Sunday, so I finally got to make the Easter Sunday breakfast menu from Betty Crocker's Party Book from 1960, which is like just a very simple but adorable. Because like the thing about Betty Crocker's Party Book is like every menu in that book is like half cooking, half crafting. So like she has you make, for example, a basket out of a grapefruit to put your marmalade in. And
So you just put marmalade in to the top of a fruit?
yeah, you like hollow the fruit out and then you make like a
Oh,
little
okay.
handle out of ribbon. And so it looks like a little basket and then you fill it with jam. And also she recommended like getting tiny fake flowers and like threading it through your bread basket to make it look springy. So I did that and like it was cute anyway. But the menu itself was like really normal. We're just never home on Easter Sunday. We're always like with family or something, or like went out for brunch. So I finally got an excuse to do it. It was just like scrambled eggs with avocado balls, fried Canadian bacon, orange muffins with marmalade in a grapefruit basket, and fruit cocktail in little sherbet glasses. But I actually used coupe glasses because I don't have sherbet glasses. And then you like put a doily around it so it looks like flowers. So it looks like a cone, like around like
On
the
the
way
inside,
like
yes.
so the way that on the outside of the thing. So like there's a glass on the inside, but the outside is like
Uh-huh.
a triangle anyway. So it's like it was just a lot of like springy crafting and like food stuff. No, I had a great time.
Did you make a lamb cake?
I did. I did make a lamb cake. I didn't decorate the lamb cake because my Easter plans got postponed. So I made the lamb cake and I put them straight in the freezer. And instead of like making a big hubbub about it on Instagram, I'm just gonna travel with him unfrosted
With him?
and frost him when I get to Houston because it'll travel so much easier that way. And yeah, so anyway, but so I also want. So I last episode I talked about my herb garden. I actually put
Uh-huh.
basil in my cake. It is
What? Like homemade basil? Homemade basil.
yeah,
Homegrown, I
yes,
guess?
it's a strawberry basil cake.
Ooh,
So
that sounds pretty good.
I like chopped up like a quarter cup of basil and like massaged it into the sugar to try to like extract all the oils. You can barely taste it, but I mean, it was my first basil
But
cake.
the important thing is that you went outside and you just clipped some basil from your
I
plant.
did. I am the fancy lady that I wanted to be, and I just went outside and clipped some basil and put it in my cake.
Oh.
But and I'm still trying to get used to the fact that I could just go get herbs at all times because my fruit cocktail for that Easter thing, it actually says garnished with fresh mint, and I am like rich with mint right now, and I totally forgot the mint. Like we finished breakfast, and then I was like, the mint. But like, I'm just not used to having fresh herbs at the ready all the time. Like I'm used to never having them on hand, so I'm still trying to get used to that. But anyway, now that we're caught all up on our boring life stuff, let's get on with the show. Not so boring. I thought all of my stuff was very exciting.
I thought myself was exciting too.
Somebody cares.
Oh. But nylon.
Anyway.
We're talking about nylon, and I'm hesitant to say, is this stocking talk or is this nylon the fabric?
It's nylon the fabric, but also other things. But mostly stockings. I've been trying to come up with like a name for this episode, and I think it might just be like nylon. It's in everything, but mostly stockings, or something like that. Like it's this outline is 80% stockings. So buckle up your garter belts because we're about to talk about nylon. So
and then I'm the one with the transitions.
yeah, that was some of my.
That was
part.
perfect. Okay, let's go.
Okay.
So we gotta start at the beginning, obviously, because that's where we always start, because we can't start at the end. So let's talk about when nylon became a thing. So really, it was first synthesized on February 28th of 1935, which is a little bit before our time here in mid-century living. In the mid-1930s, several DuPont chemicals scientists, led by a man named Wallace Carothers, started working on a prototype polymer known as, or at least then, as, quote, fiber 6-6, which makes it sound much more important and like top secret.
Yeah, it does make it sound top secret.
So Carothers and the company made this polymer by combining a long word, hexamethylene diamine.
Yeah.
Wow. A crystalline substance that easily bonds with acids and adipic acid. They then pulled strands from the concoction and spun them into plastic thread in a process called cold drawing.
So, real quick, I wanted to get out of the way some sad facts about Wallace Carruthers before we get too excited about nylon. So, he was a Harvard educated organic chemist born in Burlington, Iowa in 1896. He had nearly 50 patents to his name by 1937, but unfortunately, he had clinical depression and it prevented him from witnessing the success of his inventions firsthand. He often doubted his own competence as a chemist and was forlorn when his early superpolymer prototypes failed. His illness continued even after his team successfully synthesized nylon, and 2 years after the discovery, he took his own life.
Oh,
So,
that's sad.
he is often referred to, however, as the father of nylon, so his legacy lives on anyway.
I'm glad we're still able to celebrate his life with nylon, even through today.
Me too.
Uh, but even without their leader, DuPont's production facilities continued producing nylon. Originally, they thought this fiber would work best for things like toothbrushes, right, of all things. But once they realized just how stretchy, durable, washable, and dryable nylon was, the company channeled its invention to women's hosiery. Hosiery?
Hosiery.
Hosiery. Hosiery. Stockings. According to the American Chemical Society, this was a well calculated decision. They state on their website, quote, the decision to focus on hosiery was crucial. It was a limited premium market. When you want to develop a new fiber for fabrics, you need thousands of pounds. All we needed to make was a few grams at a time, enough to knit one stocking. So DuPont eventually was capable of spinning up 12 billion pounds of nylon annually.
So, a little bit about more about like the potential market of women's hosiery. So, just to paint a picture, stockings had really become an essential part of a woman's wardrobe, and hemlines were starting to rise in the 1930s. And at
Ooh.
this time, stockings were made from either silk or rayon and were delicate and prone to runs. Silk stockings didn't stretch, were challenging to clean, and ripped easily, but even though women purchased an average of 8 pairs of stockings per year during the 1930s. So, if they could tap into this market, it would be huge. So, the first experimental stockings were actually manufactured by Union Hosiery Company for DuPont. They had a cotton back seam and a silk welt end toe. They were black because scientists hadn't figured out how to get material to take flesh colored dye, so there's that.
Flesh colored sounds so. I don't know.
They hadn't figured out how to make nudes yet, so everyone had black stockings, but still.
Okay, that's better.
One of the other hurdles to overcome was the fact that nylon fiber anyway, distorted when exposed to heat, but developers eventually learned to fix this by stretching newly sewn stockings over leg-shaped forms and then steaming them, and the result was a silky smooth, form-fitting hosiery that never needed ironing.
So, why nylon?
So, according to legend, the word nylon originated from the attempted coinage neuron, which was supposed to be like no run spelled backwards.
Oh,
But there were trademark issues with that, so DuPont adapted the word to nylon, Nylon, and then finally to nylon, Nylon, to remove any pronunciation ambiguity.
I don't know how I feel about that. No run. It's like I just imagine a 1950s boardroom full of people dressed like madmen, smoking cigarettes, probably Lucky Strikes, and then being like, "What should be our name for this woman's product?"
I know.
How about no run?
Oh, that's too obvious. Let's do it backwards.
Oh, smart, Wilkins.
But that's a great transition into the marketing of nylon stockings.
Yes, an important part of its popularity stems from DuPont's marketing strategy. DuPont promoted nylon to increase demand before the product was even available to the general market. It was introduced as part of the World of Tomorrow at the 1939 New York World's Fair and was featured at DuPont's Wonder World of Chemistry at the Golden Gate International Exposition in San Francisco in 1939. Nylon was promoted as, quote, the first man made organic textile fabric, which was derived from cold, water, and air, and promised to be as strong as steel, as fine as a spider's web. It was actually received enthusiastically by the audience, many of them middle class women, and made the headlines of most newspapers. However, early excitement over nylon also caused problems. This marketing strategy gave consumers unreasonable expectations that nylon would be a miracle fabric that would last forever and never run. DuPont did end up scaling back the terms of the original announcement, especially those stating that nylon would possess the strength of steel.
It was a bit
They
much.
That was a bit much. Like, hold your horses, people. They actually changed their campaign strategy, emphasizing that nylon was made from coal, air, and water, and started focusing on the personal and aesthetic aspects of nylon instead.
So the first test sale of nylon was just to the DuPont employees' wives. This sale took place at the company's experimental station in Wilmington, Delaware. All 4,000 pairs of stockings sold out in 3 hours.
Hold up. They turned to their employees and said, "We have this new product, now come buy it?"
Yeah, well, they said, like, they're doing a test sale just to. That's a normal thing when they're rolling
I have
out
no idea.
to a
Is it
limited.
really?
So, yeah, like, they didn't just put it out on the market and hope for the best. Like, they tested it out on consumers, and it probably made the most sense to be like, hey, everyone, if your wives and sisters want to come try out our new prototype, we're going to open the sale for a limited run. So they made 4,000 pairs of stockings and just like, friends and family can come buy these.
I guess I never considered how people introduce new clothes to the world.
Or
Like,
new products in
or
general.
new product. Yeah, but I don't know. I guess I figured, like, I don't know. I was expecting DuPont to be like, "Here's for free pair of stockings, try it out."
Yeah,
Not
maybe.
cough out $2. Or I don't know, I have no clue how much it costs actually.
But anyway, fun fact, an early prototype of that first run of nylon stockings can be found in the Smithsonian Museum collection.
Ooh, I love the Smithsonian. It's so perfect for everything.
So after that very successful trial run, nylon stockings made their official commercial debut on May 15th, 1940. By the time they were available to the public, demand was so high that women flocked to stores by the thousands. Nylon stockings were available at large department stores and small boutiques, providing women with inexpensive, longer-lasting hosiery options. As quickly as they appeared on shelves, they disappeared. 4 million pairs sold out in 4 days.
Mm.
Nylon stockings alone brought in $9 million for DuPont in 1940, which is $150 million in today's money.
Jeez. All for nylon stockings.
All for nylon stockings.
Well, despite its wildly successful first year, DuPont was forced to shift nearly all of its nylon production to the military in 1941. This was, of course, in order to aid in the US national defense as we entered World War II. Nylon was permitted only in manufacturing of parachutes, tie cords, ropes, aircraft fuel tanks, shoelaces, mosquito netting, and hammocks. But by then, fashion trends had already created a high demand for the stocking. In the early 1940s, the only stocking available were those sold before the war or bought in the black market. According to the Chemical Heritage Foundation, one entrepreneur made $100,000 off of stockings produced from a diverted nylon shipment.
Which I think means it fell off a truck.
Yeah, it fell off. I'm doing air quotes, everyone. It fell off a truck. Yeah, is that called war profiting? Profiteering?
You
Is
know,
that what that is?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Women even started wearing painted seams down the backs of their legs to give the appearance of wearing pepper stockings. What?
Yeah, there's I'll have to find a picture. They even sold little gadgets just for this where you can put like an eyeliner pencil in a little like wheelie thing and you just like trace the back of your leg with this thing on a wheel and it just like brings the pencil up so it looks like from a distance that you have like back seams. So it looks like you might be wearing stockings even if you're not wearing stockings. It was a wild time.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be noticeable up front, like
Oh
up
yeah.
close?
Oh no, for up close for sure. You would notice, but
I'd
walking
be
down the street you
embarrassed.
might not. But luckily, eventually the war was over and rations were eased, and nylon stockings returned to stores and sold quickly. In 1945, nylon riots ensued around the country when hundreds and sometimes even thousands of women lined up to try to buy a pair. The situation got particularly out of hand in Pittsburgh when 40,000 people lined up for over a mile vying for just 13,000 pairs. A local newspaper reported, quote, "A good old-fashioned hair-pulling, face-scratching fight broke out in the line." For stockings!
I am speechless. I am without speech.
Between the end of the war and 1952, production of stockings and lingerie used 80% of the world's nylon.
DuPont also started to blend nylon with other existing fibers such as cotton, polyester, and spandex. This led to the development of a wide array of blended fabrics. The new nylon blends retain most of the properties of nylon, like elasticity, durability, and the ability to be dyed, but kept clothes prices low and affordable. DuPont's fabric development department cleverly targeted French fashion designers, supplying them with fabric samples. And in 1955, designers such as Coco Chanel and Christian Dior showed gowns created with DuPont fibers. These nylon blends are credited with providing, quote, creative possibilities and new ideas for fashions, which have been hitherto undreamed of. And that is a quote from American Fabrics.
So let's talk about all the other ways that nylon is used besides for just dresses and stockings. So nylon fiber could also be used, we mentioned, in a lot of different military supplies during World War II, but it's also used in high grade paper for US currency. It's used in carpet manufacturing, and it's also one kind of fiber used currently in tire cords. This is not a technical podcast, but I did Google it, and apparently there are layers of cords embedded in the rubber to keep tires holding their shape,
Mm-hmm.
and that nylon is involved in that process.
I
Hope
love that
that
we do
clears it up.
research. Well, we know we are not a technical podcast, and this is not a podcast about tires. It's a podcast about nylon.
Yes.
Nylon is also used in molds and resins. Molded nylon is used in items like hair combs, and nylon resins are widely used in the automobile industry and other mechanical parts, such as machine screws, gears, gaskets, and other components previously cast in metal. Nylon's good heat resistance means it can be used in parts near engines. Nylon was also used to make the stock of the Remington Nylon 66 rifle, a rifle, manufactured by Remington Arms from 1959 to 1989. It was one of the earliest mass-produced rifles to feature stock made from a material other than wood. The frame of the modern Glock pistol is also made of nylon, or a nylon composite.
Nylon's also used in food packaging. Nylon resins are used as a component of food packaging films where an oxygen barrier is needed, so it's used in things like meat wrappings and sausage casings.
Oh, ew.
Like the kinds you don't eat, not the crunchy ones on the outside of hot dogs, but like when you get like bologna and you have to like cut it out. That's
Oh.
nylon. They actually cook the meat in it. And speaking of cooking in nylon, the high temperature resistance of nylon actually makes it useful for things called oven bags, which I don't use and had to look up.
What is an oven bag? Because
It's an
Go
oven
on.
safe plastic bag you put around your turkey to like trap the moisture in.
So what? Aluminum foil's too good for some people?
Yes, if you're too good for aluminum foil, you can put your entire roasting pan in heat resistant nylon bag and steam your turkey. I'm not really sure.
I don't know how I feel about that, because even if you tell me that it's heat resistant plastic, I feel iffy about putting plastic in my oven.
I mean, I'm on the fence about this for some reason, but I do buy, which are probably also nylon, crockpot liners, which are just like
Mhm.
basically trash bags you put in your crockpot so that you don't have to clean your crockpot.
I have seen these before. I don't own a crock pot, but I've seen people use this. And actually, there's a box of those in my garage because I had a roommate once who had a crock pot.
There is nothing more annoying to clean than a crockpot. It is
Why is
so
it so
heavy.
terrible?
It's just really, really, it's like solid ceramic and it's like giant. And unless you have one of those dog washing sinks, they don't really fit in like the divided sinks very well. So you're always like turning it, and it's like it weighs like 15 pounds. It's just a real pain.
I had an issue with my sink the other day. Sorry, I'm gonna go on a tangent here, but I have one of those faucets like go up vertically and then come down, and like it's got a little spring and it's got a little hook. So when you use the little hose attachment, you have to like hook it back, right? And you're supposed to turn it off before you unhook and hook because sometimes it goes wild. And I was probably moving a giant heavy thing in the sink, and I missed the hook, and the thing was on high pressure, and it bounced and it pulled back at, and ice got sprayed in the face, and then the kitchen behind me got a puddle.
Another
There were some
cautionary
choice words
tale of
used.
the farmhouse sink.
Yeah. Anyway, back to nylon. It's also been used in filaments. So nylon filaments are primarily used in brushes, especially toothbrushes. It's also used in string trimmers like weed eaters, and used as monofilaments in fishing line. Its various properties also make it very useful as a filament in consumer and professional grade 3D printers.
But the true revolution of nylon is really how it started us down a path of using synthetic materials at all, like in general. One quote that I read in my research was, "Chemistry and human ambition have transformed the world in which we live," which I thought was... I love it when scientists are dramatic like that. Synthetic materials were not completely new, but until the breakthrough of nylon, no useful fibers had ever been synthesized entirely in the lab. Nylon has become an indispensable part of our lives, found in everything from luggage and furniture to computers and engine parts. Another quote from my research: there's a whole series of synthetic materials that indeed came from the base idea that chemists can design and develop a series of materials that had certain properties and the ability to do it from the most basic molecules. So, love it or hate it, synthetics are here to stay. What are your thoughts?
I I don't have an issue with synthetic materials versus natural. Obviously, I would prefer we use all natural stuff. My issue is with single-use plastics, which is not what we're talking about here. Because a nylon product can be reused, and that's totally cool. I have an issue with single-use plastics. I think those should be just flat out banned, because they end up in the water. Synthetic materials or natural materials in anything, I mean, as long as it's reusable, I'm cool with. That being said, also like in architecture, natural,
Mm-hmm.
because it looks better
It does look better.
and feels better. I'm very like, what's that word? Whenever you like
Tactile.
tactile. Yes.
Yeah, I feel very similarly. Whenever I sew anything, almost all of my dresses are 100% cotton. I have a couple cotton blends, and I actually was. But what's funny though is like I was trying to be a purist. I was like, well, if I'm sewing like it's the 50s, they would have been using cotton. But I got a great deal on this like poly blend that I got like 5 yards for really cheap, and it just like sat in my sewing cabinet for a really long time. And then I ended up making a skirt out of it, and it just never ever wrinkles. It's like incredible, especially since everything that I sew is 100% cotton that I basically have to steam if I look at it. Like this skirt is my like workhorse skirt because like it's my like I'm running late in the morning, so I wear it once a week like skirt, and it really, I mean, there is a place for that stuff. And yeah, well, maybe we should do an entire other episode on polyester, but we can thank nylon really for that's coming out.
I don't know how to sew beyond putting on a button, but I can knit, and I don't enjoy like real wool because it's harder to use when knitting.
That's interesting.
That's it. I don't. That's my only fabrics related thing because I don't know how to sew.
Well, this brings us to, I guess, connection to today, part 2, nylon's legacy. So nylon stockings were made the standard in women's hosiery until 1959 when version 2.0 hit the shelves, pantyhose. So pantyhose were panties and stockings all in one, which eliminated garter belts and allowed fashion to transition to even higher hemlines. This convenient alternative to stockings led to a decline in their sales. So in 1970, for the first time, the United States sales of pantyhose exceeded stocking sales, and sales have been the same ever since. In 1987, there was a slight decline in sales of pantyhose due to the newly invented hold-ups, which were thigh-high stockings that hold themselves up on your legs with like silicone grippers or something. But other than that one little dip, pantyhose remain to this day the most purchased kind of hosiery. That is to say, if you purchase hosiery at all, because by the 90s, many women were looking for comfort and freedom and just stopped wearing hosiery altogether. In 2006, the New York Times actually referred to the hosiery industry as an industry that lost its footing.
I enjoy puns. That was funny.
I feel like in the vintage dressing world, like those of us who dress kind of period accurate in ranges, there are some people who like will only wear silk stockings and they get them at like antique malls. A lot of people, they make nylon stockings, thigh highs that have to be held up with garter belts still. And so if you're going for the true authentic vintage look, there really is nothing like it. I mean, I live in Texas, so I really only wear hosiery in the winter. I'm not one of those wear it all the time, anytime you wear a dress people. So
it just makes me think of like the 90s and like pre-90, like I don't know, it feels like I never thought about it until now, but like yeah, it's very like old-fashioned, like grandma and mom, not like our age demographic.
I remember as a kid, like my grandma asking me if I was going to wear hose under a dress when I was like 10. And I was like, no, I'm not old.
Oh.
But That's so funny how it's flipped. But they really are great, like, in the winter as, like, an extra layer. And
Hmm.
they've really come a long way. Well, pantyhose in general, like, they have, like, secretly fleece-lined ones and lots of fun fashion ones. And all of this goes back to, I don't think pantyhose would have been invented if nylon stockings hadn't been invented first. So,
Hmm. I wonder if it's gonna make a comeback because now everything's making a comeback. I don't shave my legs because I have no need to do so. Some guys do, and that's totally cool. I just don't. Does wearing stockings and or pantyhose alleviate the need
it depends on
to?
how thick they are, but yeah, you can get away with not for a couple days longer, depending on how opaque your tights are. So that's the thing is, most of it's like a skin evening. So you don't want them to be like too sheer that you're not wearing them at all because you kind of want it to look like you're wearing something.
Hmm.
But if they're like too opaque, then it really matters that it's the exact same color as your skin. Otherwise, they look kind of funny, and it's kind of hard to find like your perfect shade of nude.
Because I can imagine people wearing them more if it meant that you didn't have to shave your legs.
Yeah, the fleece lined
And
ones for sure, and they do make like super opaque, like the ones you can't see through, like fashion tights in different colors. Like you
hmm,
could
hmm.
get away with not shaving your legs if you're wearing one of those. But if you're just wearing like everyday nude stockings, I mean, it could buy you another day or two probably. Like you couldn't completely stop shaving your legs and then put stockings on it, and then no one would know. Like if that's the
Hmm, hmm.
question. No, I don't think
That
that
was
you
the
could.
question.
Yeah, no, I don't think you just could completely stop shaving your legs and then put nylons on and hope for the best. I think they would poke through.
Okay.
But I don't know. Yeah, anyone out there try that technique? Let me know if that works. But while we're on a sillier note, I had one more fun fact. Did you know that there's actually a National Nylon Stocking
What?
Day?
That's actually coming up,
And it is
but
coming right up, which is perfect timing. So each year on May 15th, there's hashtag Nylon Stocking Day, an actual thing. People celebrating Nylon Stocking Day are encouraged to show off their fashion sense with the latest styles shared on social media using hashtag Nylon Stocking Day. So if anyone does anything for Nylon Stocking Day this year, also tag us because we want to see.
this winter, the summertime brings us some of the best holidays, like National Waffle Iron Day on June 29th, I think it is, and Hot Dog Week.
Hot Dog Week.
Hot Dog Week.
Oh my goodness. But anyway, now that we're any other thoughts on stockings before we
I
wrap
don't
this
think
up?
so. I've never worn stockings. I don't see myself wearing stockings in the future either.
All right, fair enough. Well, now that we're caught up to the present, it is time for our etiquette segment. So, Gonzalo, what do we have today?
Okay, so today we are back to Amy Vanderbilt's complete book on etiquette, and actually, it's kind of like a solemn occasion because Easter just happened, and the day after Easter, the Pope passed away. So this is inspired by that because I wanted to talk a little bit about the mid-century funeral etiquette and really like some tips about how to prepare, but also how to behave as an attendee as far as like going and sending flowers really, which is the one common thing that people do.
Okay,
So it's an important topic,
sure.
but you know, maybe not the funnest. So it's really the family's responsibility when it comes to death. It's really like part religious, part social, part legal. So not Emily, Amy says that there's a couple of things that one should have in what she calls an emergency file, or a strong in your strong box, which I thought was hilarious because like I actually do have a strong box, and I never thought about putting this in here. But anyway, you should include files related to funeral plans. So like if you have a funeral director or if you have plans, have that ready. If your family owns land, meaning like the plot of land, which can be like a plot, it can be mausoleum, right? All that information should be in it. And if a member wishes to be cremated, have it there as well. Also, wills, birth certificates, names of attorneys, bank information, basically everything that is quote important that you would put in like something that like if someone who's going to be managing your affairs needs,
Mm.
you would have that in that little like emergency file. So really, that's like some quick tips on what you should have prepared. Now, attending the funeral. Amy says that if it's private, you should leave it private. But if it's not marked as private, then any friend or acquaintance of the deceased may attend services. You should only really attend if you are, quote, very certain that your presence at such difficult time will be a real comfort to the immediate family. Which I thought was kind of cool thing because you want to pay respects to the person who's passed, but also you have to pay attention to the fact that someone who loved that person is still around.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that you're respectful of that. Sending flowers is something that I've seen a lot lately in funerals, and I don't mean like I've been invited to many, but I have had some lately, and there seems to be a trend of requesting to omit flowers and instead do something else, like donate or give to a specific cause. Requests to omit flowers, according to Amy, should be strictly and scrupulously respected. If you're sending to a hospital, you have to address it as in memory of blank from blank. And one should never send flowers to an Orthodox Jewish funeral, and preferably also not to a Catholic funeral. And that's because a lot of times you cannot bring them into the church.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. If you do send flowers, however, the etiquette is a plain white card attached with the name of the sender, and that's it. Those are pretty much the important things to keep in mind. You can also send flowers after a funeral to the family members. Those are also to be labeled as in memory of, or things like kindest thoughts from us all, Peggy and John. I love that she gives little examples of what to write. Of course, here also maintain respectfulness if they said to omit flowers. So I know it's kind of a downer, but I feel like there are important things to keep in mind as far as like attending funerals, and because the Pope's funeral will be this upcoming Saturday. Not that I'm invited or not, but things to keep in mind. What do you think?
I feel like this might be the winner of the most etiquette that we still use that we've ever covered before. Because I feel like all of this, everyone still does all these things, like have the emergency file and their like safe or safety deposit box with like all the stuff, and like people do. I didn't even realize back then that people would even say like, instead of flowers, donate to blank, or
yeah.
Like, I know people do that a lot now, but I didn't realize they did it then. So, like, all of this sort of just seems timeless to me. And then the parts of it I didn't already know, I think they're very good advice. Like, even though any friend or acquaintance may attend services, you should only attend if you feel like your presence there will be a comfort to the family.
Yeah.
Which is just, this is good etiquette. That's why she wrote a book.
That is why she wrote a book. And that's why the book is a good 2.5 inches thick.
I think this is all great advice. What do you think?
I think it's great advice. I think it's all important, and I didn't even consider the fact that, like you said, this is like the most I could have lifted this off of a 2025 etiquette book, not necessarily one from 1958.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I think let's give it a stamp, and with that, it looks like we have landed the plane. Thank you all for listening today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the show and tell a friend, especially if you are into nylon stockings.
Tell a friend who's celebrating #National Nylon Stocking Day.
That's true. #Nylon Stocking Day in a couple of weeks.
You can also follow us on YouTube and Instagram at MCL Podcast. Instagram is the best place to send us feedback and episode suggestions. Send us a DM anytime. And you can also contact us through the Send Us a Text Message feature in our show notes.
Yeah, so send us some fan mail. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Bye!
Thank you for listening to Mid-Century Living. Please subscribe, tell your friends, and leave a review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram at MCL Podcast. See you next Friday.